We're filming. I'll be like, welcome to Bubbleman's world.
Welcome.
Yeah, today we're sitting with Mark Cloakey, the weed guy, and a special guest, Dr. David Allen, who's in the house today. And I actually met you the first time at the Kush Cup Health Expo last year.
Yeah, he's a 30-year heart surgeon.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, if you could tell everyone a little bit about yourself, just a quick couple of minutes, that's a good start, and how you kind of got into this. I'm excited today. The reason I'm excited today is that Dr. David Allen is, to me, he's like an endocannabinoid specialist. You know, a lot of what I've learned about the endocannabinoid system and shared on my channel, I've learned through Dr. David Allen. So
he's a professor of endocannabinoid system.
So. Yeah, so let you tell a little bit about that.
Well, I'm a retired heart surgeon, and I have been using cannabis since I was 17 years old. And use it virtually every day, only after work. And I knew that there was something special about cannabis, that it worked better than other medicines. And as I finally decided I wanted to go into just cannabis research and quit doing heart surgery, so that's what I've done. And we're finding out that this new science is going to change medicine, so that's what we're here talking about.
Absolutely, and change the way we look at cannabis as a medicine, because it was actually you that mentioned to me at the Health Expo last year in regards to why we don't need prescriptions for it, and I'm not sure if you remember saying this, but you said it's a preventative medicine. There's no need to prescribe it. We should be allowed to use it as a preventative, and then you mentioned...
Well, it's actually...
diabetes and...
Yeah, we consider it a nutraceutical, and what that means is it's a nutritional thing that your body uses, kind of like broccoli or something, that improves your nutritional health. And the endocannabinoid system is a mechanism that controls whether you get diabetes or not, it controls whether you get cancer or not, and a bunch of other things. And we're finding out that really when we eat cannabis, we augment our own body's natural ability to heal itself. And so smoking cannabis helps you as well, but we're actually finding out that eating cannabis, especially if you eat it raw, it has a much more potent medical effect.
That's crazy. So it's not like you're going to get high if you eat raw cannabis, so this is actually like a nutritional supplement, like a food.
It's like a food. So
a healthy food.
When the war is over and cannabis is finally legal, and this will happen, you'll be able to go to Walmart and buy cannabis that's going to be in your cereal and other food stuff, and you'll feed it to your children. It won't get them high.
I like the juice bar idea too, where people will be growing large amounts of like clones, kind of like they do with the wheatgrass.
Just juicing it?
And you have fresh, even if they not juice it, they blend it also, you get more of the fiber.
Yeah, it'd be like an orange Julius.
I really wanted to do that.
Bud Julius.
A Bud Julius.
You wouldn't be getting high off it, but wouldn't it be cool to have a whole bunch of clones continually going at you?
Oh, no, absolutely. And you're just basically juicing them like you do wheatgrass.
Right.
It's pretty unique. It's pretty incredible time that we can find out another chapter in how incredibly beneficial cannabis is to mankind.
Yeah.
And even dog kind.
Yeah. It affects everybody a little differently, and it affects some animals differently. This dog, it is extremely strong on it, lasts for a long time, and we gave it a little piece of cannabis cookie one time, and it lasted almost 3 days. And so what that means is that some animals have enzyme systems that degrade cannabis that are different from other animals. And so it's not really delineated which breeds tolerate cannabis better or what size of animal. So it's, this research is still needs to be done.
I love how when you ask a question or you make a comment, the doctor just goes right into it scientifically.
Absolutely.
And
Well, that's
love you, doctor, for all your knowledge, and that's what
excellent.
really needs to happen. I think it's a message to other doctors that are as intelligent as you, who are kind of blind to the real facts of the benefits of cannabis. And one day they're going to have to be held accountable. I think of Dr. Gupta, who wrote that Time magazine article and has since retracted it and actually did a couple specials on CNN. So
Yeah, he's doubling down on marijuana.
Right.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
I say we
do you
all
find
should
that it's almost like they're being obtuse about, like as doctors, they
Well, did they
you
even
know the
study?
facts?
Did they even study the endocannabinoid system?
Well, funny you should ask. Last summer, I did a study where we called all the medical schools in the United States. We called 157 medical schools.
Wow.
And we asked the directors of the curriculum if they taught the endocannabinoid science to the students, if they had a director of endocannabinoid science, if they had a department, if they taught the ECS as an organized course, or if they even mentioned the ECS in any ancillary courses like pathophysiology, pharmacology, or neuroanatomy. And the answer was only 13% even mention it, and nobody has an organized course or a department with a director. And so this shows that the doctors that graduate this year are not going to be knowledgeable in the ECS, which is a control system that controls everything. We're finding out that even conception, if you block the endocannabinoid system, you can prevent sperm from entering the ovum. So you can prevent impregnation if you block the endocannabinoid system. So it's a real important system.
So you meaning to tell me they've left out a piece of the anatomy of the body teaching medical doctors in all these schools?
It's kind of like your doctor not knowing that there's a circulatory system or a nervous
It
system.
seems at least that important when you consider what you said about it earlier and how it regulates your body and the deciding factor on whether you're going to get diabetes or cancers, or you would want to know about that system.
Yeah. The importance of this is really, we're just kind of coming to understand the full meaning of what really the importance of the ECS is, and it's virtually the key of life. It is the fountain of youth because it stops it stops oxidation from happening to the cells, and many diseases that we now currently have names for will no doubt in the near future be found to be defects in the either production or degradation of the endocannabinoid molecules that your body produces. So
That's
Crazy.
incredible. I love hearing this. I love that you're sharing this with our audience and that you've been sharing this, with many audiences throughout your Facebook and through the Weed Guys YouTube page. And
And he speaks at many different conferences and stuff. He's a guest speaker.
Absolutely, I saw him speak. That's
So the importance of all of this is this: if we're going to be preventing diabetes, then we're going to be preventing everything that's associated with diabetes. So we'll be preventing amputations, we'll be preventing kidney dialysis, and we'll be preventing blindness. And there's studies that prove that if you use cannabis for 20 years or more, just even smoking it, that it decreases the incidence of diabetes by 66%. So this is like a miracle.
It is a miracle when you think of both the suffering and the emotional state of mind that you would also be decreasing in all of that. Like
Right.
people that didn't have to get dialysis is terrible for people to have to go through that
Right.
when really they maybe they wouldn't have to go through that.
And so these politicians that think they're doing right by passing laws that make marijuana illegal and arresting people, they really don't understand that they're trying to pass a law that would prevent their own family from having a stroke or heart attack. They don't understand that they're preventing science from advancing. So
Which is killing people.
Yeah, it's killing people and causing suffering.
But that can't be accidental, though, unfortunately. I'm not trying to get into a big conspiracy rant here or anything.
But they do sell sugar a little
how
more
can
than
it
they
be-
sell pot.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, it seems more like an agenda than it does an accident. How do you accidentally spend, hundreds of billions of dollars on propaganda and lies? And somehow, like, even guys like Sanjay Gupta, I believe there's more of him out there. I don't believe doctors are bad people, but I believe somehow a system's been built to specifically...
It prevents them from talking.
Yeah, it's
And
all built...
If you're
And he's famous enough to do so.
If your income stream comes from that realm, then it's hard to challenge that realm because it'll challenge your income stream.
Absolutely.
Brutal. So he literally got you by the bank account.
To me, it seems like some of the most important information going right now to share with a family member or loved one or friend that is in any type of ailment right now. There's so many different ailments that can be fixed by simply feeding your endocannabinoid system just from these deficiencies.
Right.
People don't even know they have them.
Right. And really, it seems that these endocannabinoid deficiencies make you think different. And really, the people that are making the laws, for the most part, aren't using cannabis, and they pass laws that they think sound reasonable, but on further examination, especially if you smoke pot, you can see the folly in the laws that they've passed, and they think they're reasonable, but people that smoke pot kind of understand that they can't be reasonable.
Yeah, and I think that folly is a real danger.
It makes them look bad, too.
That mistake that they're making, it does make them look bad. It's just
so
cheesy.
Really, they don't think properly. If you smoke cannabis, you actually think better than if you don't smoke cannabis. So you're kind of inhibited if you don't use cannabis.
Sure. Not to mention they're putting out something that's such a lie that when they put out something that's the truth, how are young people supposed to acknowledge the difference when they see one thing that's clearly folly to them because
Right.
they've also perhaps smoked cannabis or know someone that's using it medicinally or recreationally,
Right.
and they know that those things are not true.
And then there's stuff like alcohol, which kills people, and they can see that, so it's a direct contradiction.
Yeah, well, alcohol is potentially one of the most dangerous drugs we have.
Speaking of which, Prime Minister Harper had a huge party at his house and had an 18-year-old girl, minor, in BC.
Alcohol poisoning is really dangerous. You can die from that.
Yeah.
People do die from that. It's definitely...
You should have thrown a pot party. You wouldn't have got so much press.
I'm telling you. We would have been there.
Yeah.
When the government is caught in lies, it makes the population mistrust the government.
That as well.
And so what it really does is it creates an animosity between the people and the government, which affects the government on other levels.
That's exactly.
So the government needs to be truthful for the people to really, trust the government.
Well, if they want their foundation to be made out of like stone instead of sand, they should be truthful and be honest and have.
That's why I like Rob
integrity.
Ford. I mean, he's a liar, but at least you know what you get with that guy.
You do know what you get with him, that's for sure. And if only we could get someone that you
Matt
know what
Murdock
you get.
from here, by the way.
If we could get someone who you know the same way but isn't actually like that, like this goes back to people that aren't using cannabis. People that aren't using cannabis, this type of person, the people that want to rule and control are generally not the same people who want to grow cannabis and use cannabis. That's the real people that want to control other people, become presidents and become directors and become the head of the whatever. They're generally in their own right on a different path.
And it's also the industries that they control that they're trying to keep it away. Maybe they don't agree or don't care about pot, but they sure do care about the forest industry or the pharmaceutical industry and what it will do to that.
Yeah.
So can you
Well, I'll tell you, 25 years ago, it was such a different world in Canada, and literally, I'm not sure how long it's been now, about 94, so about 20 years since we got our first hemp field growing in Canada. And I'll never forget my ex-partner from back then, Martin, saying, "This will change the way people see it when they start seeing this stuff growing on the side of the road. It's just going to. It's gonna because and in Manitoba it would have been like this.
I'm surprised so many people don't know that marijuana and hemp are the same thing, just the male and the female.
That was another little fib we had to tell our government. That hemp was a distant relative of cannabis. We used that very wording with the Minister of Finance and Agriculture. And we felt like it was a viable, it was okay to tell that fib.
Of course.
Because...
Whatever gets you growing in my eyes.
And the THC limits were so low that sure, you could probably raise the THC limits even in that strain if you bred it over the course of the amount of time.
30 years.
Probably 40 to 50 or whatever, but still, it's there. Its genetics is there. It's in the...
Still got a little bit of THC.
It's got to be in there, exactly. 0.01, you can never get rid of it. Why would you want to? Well, for us, we wanted that at that time just to get hemp in the ground. And that seemed like it was also an okay thing. Because we got slack from people, oh, no THC, this is going to ruin pot, this is crazy. People were freaking out about it.
Growing it to get high.
These were our supposed supporters.
They're just jealous you're doing it.
We're all doing it.
It's for the people.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, what about the ritualistic use of cannabis for thousands of years, and what do you think about how it's only been in the last 100 years that they really bastardized it, and it's before then it's been used, in tradition from all sorts of different cultures and races, from like the Scythians, the Egyptians. I mean, it's only it's very in terms of mankind, it's only really been a very small blink in time that it's been illegal and persecuted like it is. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, do you think that it's going to get reversed, or do you think it's just been an implementation of trying to control the planet?
It's crazy how a government has spent all this money and energy and built up all these weapon systems and information systems to fight a plant, and the plant seems like it's winning. And it's winning because the war is based on false information.
Lies.
It's on lies.
It's wrong.
And the plant, these people think they're passing just laws, but they're passing laws against something that will stop diabetes. So how do you, in what bizarre world does that make sense, where you can pass a law against something that cures disease?
What about the lack of hard evidence of physical side effects from cannabis that's never been presented? I find that just a travesty.
Yeah.
Well, there's no dead bodies, is what I'm trying to say, So, like, how can this be when there's millions of people being killed by alcohol and cigarettes?
Well,
do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's a reason we don't know more information about cannabis and its ill effects, is because they don't allow scientists to study it because of its classification
For 7 years or something.
CSA1, Controlled Substance Act, CSA1 class, Schedule 1.
Exactly.
And the only reason, the CSA has 5 schedules, and they're all illegal, and cannabis is Schedule 1, and the only difference in Schedule 1 and the other schedules is, if it's Schedule 1, scientists can't study it without special permission that they don't give. Exactly. So essentially, anything in Schedule 1, a scientist or a doctor can't study. And so if it was made Schedule 2, it would still be illegal for people to own, but doctors could study it. And they seem to want to use the excuse that if doctors were studying it, they would have stashes of it that could be diverted to the public for non-medical use.
Right.
And that doesn't hold water. But the truth is, the whole scheduling was made to prevent scientific study. So we made knowledge illegal by this method.
Yeah.
That's a pretty impressive thing when you
Your cat's bigger than your dog.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's...
you don't have a big dog.
That's a terrible blow right there when they did that. And that was, I believe, from 1937, from the Narcotics Peace Treaty.
Yeah, the Controlled Substance Act came into effect in 1970.
Oh, okay.
But it really, they had to make, what happened was, in 1937 they passed the Marijuana Tax Stamp Act, and that made marijuana illegal, except for medicinal use, it was illegal. And to have marijuana, you could have it legally if you had this
Your
tax stamp, which
right.
they didn't give out. So basically, and you had to have the marijuana in hand to get the stamp. And so what happened was Timothy Leary was busted at the Mexican border. His daughter was carrying some marijuana, and
Right.
he was busted, and he went to jail for
For her, yes.
carrying it.
I heard him tell that story.
And what happened was, he was sent to jail for a long time, and he finally, on appeal, his lawyers argued that if you had to have the marijuana to get the tax stamp, that was self-incrimination, and therefore it was constitutionally illegal. And the court agreed with Timothy Leary, so for a short time after that court ruling, marijuana was technically legal in the United States, but people didn't know about it. And what it forced their hand, because they had a legal loophole that people were not using, and so what they did, they had to close that legal loophole, and so they designed this Controlled Substance Act in a fashion that well, they thought, well, now how can we make marijuana illegal so no one can ever make it legal again?
Right.
And so they came up with this crazy classification. The CSA-1 has three points, that it has high potential for abuse, and since there's no criteria for what that is, that makes it an undefinable thing. And then not currently used for medicinal use, and as we all know, that prior to 37, that it was one of the most prescribed medicines, but they get around that by saying currently. And then the third thing was not safe under physician guidance. And so, and since physicians can't prescribe Schedule I substances, that held true. So they used this triple threat of a criteria to make marijuana illegally in a really unconstitutional means.
Yeah, it was definitely a pretty near fatal blow to cannabis for a long time.
Yeah.
Because I do remember Andrew Weil did a study in 1965.
What I understand is if they're, sorry to interrupt you, but if it was being prescribed, you said the most, previous to 1937, wasn't there any doctors protesting, like, hey, now I can't prescribe it, it was useful?
Well, actually there was.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, there was,
You have
and
to
there
think
was.
about information too, though, how information was passed.
it was really slow
It
back
was
then.
slow.
Well, there was a large amount of doctors that were being arrested and thrown in jail for still using cannabis tinctures, because every major pharmaceutical company was had
They had
preparations using cannabis tinctures and other things.
Mhm.
And so the doctors were still using them, and what happened was the AMA kind of made an amends with the government and allowed it to be taken off the pharmacopoeia. And so the year prior to that, they had arrested 10,000 doctors. The year after that, they arrested like 7 doctors or something. So
Taking the most medicinal plant ever off of the pharmacopoeia.
right. And so it's like a bizarre world.
Well, that's what it is.
Where these people, for ulterior motives, make something that's healthy for you illegal, something that could save your grandmother's life. It's crazy how this law developed.
It's so multi-useful. You know, you say your grandma's life, but I thought it was like or your child's seizures.
Yeah, or
Right.
your life.
Yeah, or your own life. Like, it saved my life, so. Yeah, it's really a big heist. An amazing heist.
It is. I mean, I feel blessed on one point in the sense that even though we're still fighting for our rights, we're able to have our little gardens and we're able to grow our own medicine, but it's still under the threat of being taken away, and I just think, wow.
Well, they've made it criminally more illegal to grow marijuana.
Oh, I know.
We have one side of the marijuana law here for medical use, but on the other side, Harper has been making it a longer
mandatory
jail term.
minimums.
Yeah, mandatory minimums.
Which even some judges have already been like, we're not doing that.
Yeah, they're not enforcing it.
You know, and it makes sense because he wants to fill his private prisons.
Yeah. So how do you make it illegal if you had a substance that you could eat and it didn't get you high and would decrease the incidence of diabetes by 66%, and your doctor can't give you any other medicine, there's no other medicine that decreases the incidence of diabetes by 2%. So if your doctor could give you this stuff that would do this, and they would make a law against that makes the lawyers and the politicians that pass these laws look pretty ignorant when you examine their laws under the truth of what they're really doing.
Absolutely, but well, if you examine the actual true agenda,
I think it was
they're brilliant because their evil agenda needs evil, and they're really good at their evil, and that's how they can pass those laws. They're not doing it accidentally. You know what I mean? It's for such big money. And why are they doing it? Well, it's because these companies certain companies, 90% of their pain management medications alone, just pain management.
I think it was a double threat too. I mean, the hemp
cannabis
was for the tree industry. It's one of the largest industries in North America.
50,000 commercial products.
Exactly, right? And then
from hemp.
And then on top of the pharmaceutical. So they had two really powerful industries that
Absolutely.
were lobbying for it, and owned by only a handful of people. I think people need to realize that the pharmaceutical industry was family owned basically back then.
And even with the hemp, the way we've been allowed to grow it here in Canada, you know, we were young activists when we fought for that right, and when we got it, we were so happy to get it, so happy to change the law from experimental to commercial. But then what? Then we're growing it for seed, and the seed oil is too expensive to run engines on, so we can only sell it at high-end grocery stores where you can put it on your salad. Like, that is a failed hemp industry in Canada. The fact that all we have is hemp food, that's all we got out of it from 15 to 20 years ago. There's still no fiber being produced, there's still no crete, there's still no hemp metal, there's still no all of these products that we should be producing out of hemp.
Yeah.
You know, so I still feel there's a long way to go for that as well. You know, the same way we're fighting even still for our...
And even if you don't use marijuana, these marijuana laws are used against you to restrict your freedoms. So really this marijuana issue, it affects everybody, even if you don't use the cannabis.
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, in Canada, it costs you money to be able to enforce these archaic laws. It costs you to get the police and the judge and the sheriffs and the jails.
And they don't even follow their rules. Like, they make rules and then don't follow them, like sovereignty rules that say police from other countries aren't allowed to come into other countries and police. Well, then how did the DEA come up into BC and take Mark Emery away?
Right.
Like, how did I saw them with
Using,
Bella Clavers. I saw them arrest him, Michelle, and Greg, and like take them away.
Right.
They weren't. That's insane.
Yeah, and they also use our own police services to execute it with them. So
Oh, yeah,
it's
absolutely.
kind of like they're puppets.
Yeah.
And I always think there's a lot of countries that would never happen. You know,
Oh my
could you
goodness.
imagine like Japan going into China and sending police in
the
to go arrest them?
Guatemalan army just came into the hemp BC or whatever. Like,
And I think
Mark
it's
was like,
also-
get out of here.
Always when I make this point, it's that Mark had no charges in Canada. It's not like he had some crazy charges that he
No.
would get 5 years for in Canada.
Well, that was clearly a personal vendetta
Right.
what the U.S. government had against Mark, not only because of his outspoken activism, but what's more threatening than an activist is a wealthy activist who will put all his money into his activism, like sending Americans bail money and helping Americans move out of the U.S. into Canada, and just like he
And
never
spreading the word to overgrow the government.
Yeah, he never
He's
kept
literally
his
saying
money.
plant seed.
he just
plant
gave it
seed.
all back as it was coming. People were like, Mark charges too much for seeds. It's like he gives it all away to that. Listen, when you go to a silent auction and it's for some cool event that you want to support, do you think the intent is to pay less for the auction item?
Mhm.
You go to pay more. That's how a silent
Raise
auction
money.
works. You want to pay
And you
more.
get a little something back.
Exactly, and that's what Mark was doing with the seeds, and he didn't want to have to explain it to everyone. Listen, you're paying more because of what I'm doing with the money. Aren't you stoked to be watching what I'm
Not
doing
only
with
that,
the
what
money?
you got with Mark is what you got. I mean,
Absolutely.
I got 20, 30 different strains of different seeds from Mark, and they always were bang on.
Yeah, well,
And I don't think people realize you actually gotta, import those and go get them, and it's
Yeah,
not
the
like
amount
you
of
just
work.
go buy them and ship 5,000 different seeds into Canada.
I, for one, am looking very forward to getting Mark back to BC.
He's gonna be a star.
Well,
I can't wait.
they've
He's gonna
awakened
call
a
following.
sleeping giant with this, and
yeah.
this is gonna,
Did they ever?
the drug war is failing, and this is its last gasp. And what we need to do is make sure people get involved, and make sure that the new laws that come out make sense, and don't punish people for using a medicine that helps their diabetes, it helps their anxiety, it helps their sleep, it helps them eat.
Oh yeah. I mean, either way, from back in the day when they pulled the teeth out of the hashish eaters in Cairo in like the 14th century, they were trying to, that was their version of like the Controlled Substance Act or any of these other preventatives to getting us not to use this magical plant, like spending billions of dollars. And like David said, I think cannabis might be winning this war. Pulling their teeth out in the square didn't stop these guys from eating hash. I think at that point, they could have figured it out. Listen, these people really like this.
Yeah.
They are willing to have pulling their teeth out with like brutal, probably not even well-made pliers. Like,
Yeah.
You
And the fact that they probably used cannabis afterwards for the
they
game.
did, 100%. They still, you know what I mean? They still used it, they still kept using it, they still gathered, they still use it to this day. People aren't going to stop using this plant. And the fact that,
That's why I want to go to Kashgar. I've
Oh,
never
yeah.
been there. I've read about it. I heard it's in the west of China. I've been to the north to Turpan where that old mummy was with the
oh yeah.
789 grams of procured cannabis. It's the oldest
Yeah.
pharmaceutical use.
I held
of
some of
cannabis.
those seeds from that.
Yeah, they came
mummy.
to Oxford. Yeah, they came around.
No, they gave some to
Chris's
to
friend.
Stuntman Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when I was at his house one day and he was like, check this out. And I was just like, what the, man, I was like, what is that? I think it might have, I can't remember if it was some of the weed or it was just the seeds, I think. And he was like, those are the oldest seeds, like, ever found or something. Like, they were
Yeah, it's the oldest
thousands of
pharmaceutical
years
use. Yeah, because it was in the desert up in the
Very
north.
cool.
of the
He had
Turpan
them. He
Basin.
had them in a little glass vial.
Yeah.
He also has the world's smallest seeds from, I believe, Nepal, and the largest seeds from China, which look like small walnuts.
Cannabis seeds?
Yeah.
Oh wow, I never knew
I
that.
mean, not small, like
Yeah.
maybe that big.
Yeah.
But way bigger than any seed you've ever seen, like
Cool.
4 or 5 times bigger.
But I heard in Kashgar they have the world's largest outdoor market every Sunday, and people, I've been to Nepal. I know
It's
you
the
have
cannabis
also.
market.
And that hash kind of feeling the Muslims seem to have in that whole area. So I figured, and I know they like.
That'd be amazing.
Just put in Kashgar and
Christiana
hash and see what
style,
comes up.
hey?
Yeah, well, I think it would be cool just to go experience that sort of feel of this crazy market that everyone from all over comes into China, that area.
Oh, yeah.
It's a crazy big market, and then buy some
Yeah.
hash.
And you know what? The world's changing too. All these places are getting cooler. Some friends of mine that own a seed company were telling me that people from like Iraq have been ordering lots of seeds. And I was just like, don't they like hang in there or something? He's like, yeah, I think so, but it must be getting cooler. Like it's on the books, but they haven't done it in a while. I don't know. Like just the fact that people are ordering seeds and going back
Even
to
on my
Iraq
YouTube account, I noticed like some
Awesome.
of the crazy countries that people
Oh,
are
yeah.
watching with the analytics, right? I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia,
over
how's
the
it
world.
going?
Why not? We're all people, right? Just
Yeah,
because
well-
we live under different rules.
And I was in Sri Lanka, the Mount Lavinia Hotel, and I had been there for a day, and then I came out, and the front desk guy, he was like, I know you. And I was like, oh, no, I've been here a day. I've never been to Sri Lanka in my life, right? And he's like, no. YouTube, right? And he's a younger guy, and I was like, oh my god, right? And I was like, all the way in Sri Lanka. And
Of course.
I don't have that many subscribers, you know?
Hey, you
And
could
like-
have 3 and still meet that guy.
Yeah, I know, it's just crazy.
That's
how,
the unique thing.
Yeah, that's how small it is.
Usually when I have an experience like that, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Me too.
I feel like, yes, I'm
I gave him a $20 tip when we left, which is...
nice. He was very happy.
That's what I call charity, is when you like really meet somebody, you know the money's going like directly to their family, and it means so much to them.
Oh, absolutely. good people.
I hate donating. Like, I don't mind charities, but like a lot of time it's like it's not very 1-to-1. You don't see where your money's going. It's just going into a charity. They've probably got a great infrastructure, and some of them are good out there and have a low overhead. Although some of them, I'm sure it's the opposite. But when you just like actually go person to person and do something nice for them,
Absolutely.
that's what's nice about traveling.
It's easy to do nice things for people.
Yeah, well, and also like
Start by being nice.
in Canada, it's pretty blessed here. I mean, I know we have poor people here, but in reality, we have great social programs. You can get a welfare check, the food bank. There's lots of ways to live a better life, and even disabled people are in permanent disability, or your Medicare is all covered and all that stuff. So when I travel, it's like, you know, a lot of people are a lot.
We have it better than most.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's
For
not
sure.
perfect system, obviously, but healthcare alone. I mean, I had a bone marrow transplant. I heard that's $250,000 in the States.
Whatever. Our governments gave us licenses to grow weed.
That's true too. Well, they didn't give it to us. We had a Supreme Court ruling forcing them to give us access.
No, before that.
Before that,
Well, I mean, just applying.
Terry Parker had to take it to Supreme
He
Court
did, absolutely, of
to
course.
force them to allow us to be able to have access.
You know, we never did for hemp. We just were like, we wrote in and that we were like,
trying to get the licensing.
we like, can we get an application? He said there is no application. So we created it by sending in our kind of, this is what we want to do, and then they sent it back and they said, no, you got to do this, this, and that, and then we do all that, and that went on for like 9 months, just back and forth, and that's sort of how and they did it with us. They did it with Jeff Kime and Joe Strobel in Ontario, and they did it with, I believe, they were also.
So some guy in Alberta. He had a representative.
Not the first year. Not the first year.
Oh no, sorry.
Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Ontario, I believe, were the 3 provinces that did it.
And what year was that?
94, 95.
Awesome. Well, that's an amazing thing
Yeah.
to hold in your life, dear to your heart. I mean,
Absolutely.
hemp is only in its minuscule stages in Canada, like you're saying, with the products it's not producing yet. So
That's true.
I hope a Liberal government and some hungry Albertan and Saskatchewan farmers decide to just like, I'm going to plant thousands of acres. I don't understand why they're not into biodiesel and all that stuff. Even the oils or like the
Well, because like I said, I mentioned it earlier, right? The way they've got it set up is not. It's the oils are too valuable.
Or this year, next
Yeah,
month,
next month.
next year. I'm sorry, I'm in 2008 still.
That's okay. Oh yeah, we were hitting 2008. I forgot about that.
You should show them.
We were hitting the bubble from 2008. This is 6+ years old, actually.
Smooth. It's good.
It's really nice, and it's not quite shatter consistency.
And
but
it's like taking a time machine to
if I made it
2008.
cold, it would be.
Yeah.
It really is. There's another one.
That's what I love about it.
Made the right. It's fruit roll up. No doubt about that. Maybe we
Beautiful.
should hit a little more.
You can go first.
I will. Thank you. Happy to go first. Lose my little piece.
Oh.
And then maybe did it not snap off as well as I thought it did. Is that it?
So, what would make it more viable in an oil form? Why is it? It's because of the
For fuel?
processing?
For fuel?
It's because of the processing?
Well, it's because the value they've put on it. Go to the supermarket and see how much that oil is valued.
yeah, but
it's
it's
like
because there's not enough people
$17.
producing. It's like pot. If everyone's growing it, it's going to go down in price.
It's because of the cost as well to produce it.
Yeah,
It's
the cold
directly
press
related.
too, right?
Absolutely,
Depending
all
on
of it. The whole. There's no good infrastructure set up for that to be on a huge level, like a continent type level.
Yeah.
And then America is a beast. How many people and consumers are in that country? Like, whew, Canada could be growing hemp full time just to fuel America. Even though America themselves could grow, I think it's about 6% of their marginal land, not even their good land, could grow all the BTUs, at least it could back in 2000, for the entire country. And that was a Jack Herrera, Emperor Wears No Clothes.
Calculation.
Mm-hmm.
R.I.P.
Biomass.
I'm baked. Spend a couple hours here, you're guaranteed to be fully medicated.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. There's no doubt of such things.
I love that you always have such a variety.
Well, I mean, we deserve it, don't we?
Weed do deserve it.
We deserve it. And when I say we, I mean everyone. Everyone. Kind of my whole trip on why I'm always showing people how to dry sift and wet wash and just giving all the tricks and tips away to people so they themselves can can experience what I like to call the unadulterated cannabinoid high. Because it's such a gentle energy, it's such an incredible energy that when you can't... I've learned that, I mean, sure, growing it great is super important. I'm less impressed with trying to grow it greater
That was tasty.
than trying to isolate it greater. I like the isolation factor. Isn't that nice? All right, well, I want to thank these guys for coming down and talking. Thank you very
I'm
much.
in bubble world, sorry,
Both of
dude.
you guys. Thank you, David.
Well, thank you for
Thanks so
having us.
much. The knowledge is amazing, and you're definitely a pioneer in the hemp industry. I had no real idea. I think I'd seen a couple photos of you before, maybe. But wow, just
back in the
amazing
day.
stories. And doctor, you're such an expert in the EndoCannabinoid system and just your life experience alone. I feel privileged being with these two awesome guys. So thanks
Dude.
for having me.
Awesome, man. Thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah.
Peace.